Welcome to episode 23 of Shane Talks 99. First things first, I need to correct myself or explain myself. Last episode, I said there was going to be a Wednesday release for this week, which would have technically been a Sunday release this year. But it's because Tarzan, some places says that it was released on June 16th. Other places say that that was a soft, limited release and that it didn't go wide until the 18th. So I just decided to roll everything up into this week, the June 18th episode. So Tarzan kind of maybe came out 2 days earlier, but I'm just going to all do this as one episode together. Tarzan being the prequel to the 2013 blockbuster Frozen. Yeah, you heard me right. That's right. Tarzan is the prequel to Frozen. And are you sitting there like doubting me? Like, have you not heard this theory slash fact? Well, let's start going down the rabbit hole real quick. Let's start with the fact that this is directed by a guy named Chris Buck. Chris Buck just happened to direct both Tarzan and Frozen. And to top all of that off, he was one of the writers on Frozen. So it kind of easily allowed him to write these two movies, as connecting. A year after Frozen came out in 2014, Chris Buck went onto Reddit and did an Ask Me Anything post where people could just ask questions and whatnot. So somebody asked him the question, where were the king and queen planning to go when they lost their lives at sea? Now, Chris Buck's answer is pretty obvious. His response was, they didn't die on that boat. They got washed up shore on a jungle island. The queen gave birth to a baby boy. They built a treehouse, and then they got eaten by a leopard. I mean, that is literally the plot of Tarzan. So, from the director himself's mouth, he has connected those two movies. So, there's no fan theory about this. This is like director fact. Like he has said it. There's no theories, asking, where they went or anything like that. Like he told us what happened. And okay, let's connect this even further. This is actually a theory. This isn't like official or anything. Um, but some people have speculated that like the where were they going is that they might have been heading off to the wedding of Rapunzel and Flynn from Tangled. Because those two characters make a cameo in the movie Frozen. So if you want to connect those two movies, like those families knew each other, maybe they were on their way to go to the wedding at the end of Tangled, but they never made it because they're not in Tangled. But then another person wants to take this theory even farther and wants to say that the opening of The Little Mermaid, when Ariel is swimming around in that sunken boat, that's that same boat. So you can connect all these movies, and I love stuff that connects with each other and whatnot. So, I mean, if we want to go a little bit farther with the Little Mermaid thing, Chris Buck was also, credited as a character designer in The Little Mermaid. So, I mean, it's just another way that he could connect all these movies that he's worked on. Granted, he has worked on a lot of movies. We'll get to that here in a second. But I strongly believe Tarzan, Elsa, and Anna are all related, and that's the sequel that needs to be made now, like Frozen 5 or Frozen 6 or whatever they're on with the Frozen movies now. Like you need to bring Tarzan in for me and connect all these two movies together. I said I'd talk about Chris Buck's stuff that he's been involved in. He was part of the heyday of the late 80s, early 90s Disney stuff. Like he literally worked on all those projects, like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, like all those movies. Like he was a part of in some way in the animation department. Also in the animation department, non-Disney stuff. He was part of the animated version of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, a Saturday morning cartoon that I absolutely loved. He worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You had to be baller to work on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That movie is amazing. He also worked on a really funny movie in the 90s that I love called Bebe's Kids. Not super popular, but a very funny R-rated animated comedy. So Chris Buck has a great resume, and Tarzan is literally at the top of that list. Let's start with the voice cast. Tony Goldwyn is Tarzan. Minnie Driver is Jane. Then we got Lance Hendrickson playing, I can't remember the character's name, but Tarzan's gorilla dad. His gorilla mom is played by Glenn Close. Then we got Wayne Knight and Rosie O'Donnell who play the comedic sidekick characters, which are fine. They're both okay, but they just to me feel like the Kmart versions of Timon and Pumbaa. They're trying too hard to be those characters again. But what are that? They're fine. I just got the Timon and Pumbaa vibes too much from them. So talking about this flick, it's kind of like very on point for society right now, and like the way society like plays up like people like not feeling like they are who they are supposed to be or where they belong or anything like that. But like on top of that, like this has an amazingly emotional opening to this movie. Like everybody wants to talk about how Up fucks them up. Like Up is just so crazy, and like Up is just like this insane cry fest in the beginning. You literally got to remember the opening sequence of Tarzan. Mama gorilla watches little baby gorilla get snatched up right out in front of her, taken off and eaten and killed. Literally in the opening song. In that same opening song, we then see Tarzan's parents, all the shit that happens to them, and then they get eaten by this same lion or leopard or cheetah or whatever cat animal this was. Like, this all just happens in the opening sequence. And like literally, so when I rewatched it recently, like it's funny because I rewatched Tarzan, and then I also a couple of weeks ago rewatched the very first A Quiet Place. And like those movies open the exact same way. Like I literally think John Krasinski had Tarzan on his brain when he wrote the opening to A Quiet Place because literally he watches his child get snatched up by the alien in front of him and murdered, and he's just there helpless. And then both films deal with the emotional fallout, mental trauma that these parents are dealing with by losing their children. It's it's crazy. They just think about it. It's very identical. So we've got Tarzan. Like this is total fairy tale. Like it's prime fairy tale storytelling. You've got a mother that lost her child. You've got a child that lost its parents. Gonna bring those two worlds together. It's like a fish out of water story, but not exactly a fish out of water story. Like we as an audience know it's a fish out of water story because we know that Tarzan doesn't belong there, but Tarzan doesn't realize that until later on in the movie. And so like he's spending the first part trying to figure out why he feels like he doesn't belong and why other people treat him differently. Like, but he's never been made aware you're not actually an ape. You just look different. So like really on point for like where society is now these days. And then all of a sudden, like we got all these other humans that show up to their island. All of a sudden Tarzan's like, whoa, like these people look exactly like me. Like, where have they been my whole life? Like, why have I been here with these gorillas? And then it's like the tearing between two worlds and whatnot. We've got our villain of the movie who obviously manipulates Tarzan because of his naivete, gets him to betray his family. So you know, typical 100% Disney villain right there. Kind of pulls the same bamboozlement that Gaston pulls on the Beast. Like very on point for a Disney villain. Um, let's go now to like the soundtrack of Tarzan because they ended up bringing in Phil Collins of Genesis and decided to do something different from what a lot of the like prime Disney movies have done. Like a lot of those films had the characters in the movies sing the songs, you know, sing them as part of this show. They decided not to do that, and I'm so thankful that they did because like I personally could not take seriously a movie that had a half naked gorilla man swinging around on trees singing to me. So instead, what the directors and musicians decided to do is they used the songs as narrative pieces for what was going on in the movie to tell the story while we watched it instead of you know taking you out of the characters' lives while they're singing for a few minutes. Like, and again, it works in a lot of movies. It works in Aladdin. It works in Beauty and the Beast. Like, it's fine in some of the other Disney movies. I'm just glad they chose not to do it in this one because these songs are bangers, like Two Worlds, Son of Man, Strangers Like Me, You'll Be in My Heart. Like just all top-notch, amazing songs for this movie, all on the same soundtrack. And I cannot think of a single bad thing to say about this movie, especially as far as animated movies go. Like it truly helped seal the deal that 1999 is an amazing year. One of the best for animation because like later this year we're going to talk about the Iron Giant, and then even later this year we're going to talk about Toy Story 2, which all just contributed to how great 1991 nine was. All right, so that's a lot of Tarzan talk. We have two other movies to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about them as much. The first one is a movie called The General's Daughter. It's a suspense thriller murder mystery that just kind of fell flat. Like it's not a terrible movie, like it's not bad, but like the third act just doesn't live up to the trailer or like what the movie sets it up to be. We have John Travolta and Madeline Stowe who are investigating this murder of James Cromwell's daughter. She's found like naked and tied up in like a it's not a field, it's somewhere on this military base. Of course, like as far as the plot goes, small world, John Travolta is there doing some other business before this murder happens, but he just happened to used to date Madeline Stowe, but never committed to a relationship with her. So like they're former lovers, and that's like a subplot I didn't really need because it doesn't really do anything good for the plot except for like give them some lines of dialogue between each other and like it sets up an ending where John Travolta, after everything they go through, finally like it makes you believe that he's decided to commit to a relationship with her. It's just so blah. Didn't need to be on there. Like I honestly would have enjoyed, I don't know, something better to be done with these characters. More like some flirtatious banter that we had in The Mummy. Like that would have been a far better like setup and situation to put these two characters in. The rest of the cast, we got Timothy Hutton, Clarence Williams III, James Woods. Like this movie's got a decent cast. They just got bamboozled by this script that gave them a crap like third act. Like leading up to it, like really good detective work. I mean, really good, I say detective work. Like it's fine. It's interesting, like as they dig into this girl's past and try to like figure out what happened to her, like who could have wanted to do this. Dig up some stuff that happened at West Point. She had like she was sexually assaulted by some of the other cadets there. Um, what happened to her during the sexual assault is mirrored in the murder, so it kind of makes you think it's somebody that had something to do with that. The plot deals with the fact that like her rape got like swept under the rug by the army, and like their argument was like they were afraid that no females would want to join the army if they heard about this. So, like it was this big cover up that happened at West Point, kind of just like what happened emotionally and mentally fucks this girl up, and like she becomes like this super like sexual like person. She's sleeping with a bunch of people on base and whatnot. So there's all kinds of other people that could have been like, that they're looking at as, potential suspects for this murder. Cause like, if you're having all these affairs and stuff like that, like again, it's an interesting plot. Like there's a lot of, you know, this murder mystery stuff that goes on that's not bad. It's kind of enjoyable. And then you hit the third act. I mean, not even like the whole third act, like the last 10 minutes of the third act. Like once the killer is revealed and his motive is revealed, like you're just sitting there as a viewer and you're like, well, this is a pretty huge disappointment. Like looking into this guy, it's no surprise that this screenwriter has only had one other Hollywood film, and it was 2011's Battle Los Angeles, which was literal complete trash, like an absolute terrible movie. It was kind of disappointing that this was Simon West's sophomore movie, his second film that he directed after he did the amazing Con Air in 1997. So Simon West's career just started off on a high note with Con Air and just kind of went downhill after that. He's done some things that were better than this, but again, just kind of a disappointment. Like 75% of this movie is decent, but if it came out in any other year besides 1999, I probably wouldn't be telling you it was worth your time. It's not really worth your time. It's on like Showtime and Paramount Plus to stream, but not really anything that you need to go out of your way to watch. But it's not terrible. Our last movie that we do have to talk about is an amazing German film. And it's the German film that introduced the world to Franca Potente, who would later break out in Hollywood as the female lead in the first Born Identity film. This film is called Run Lola Run, or its German title was Lola Rent. It was originally like this German art house movie that I got to see at Castleton Arts, so that holds a special place for me right there. Um, the film has an extremely interesting narrative structure, and I think that's why I love it so much. It's the same story told three different times, showing you like essentially the butterfly effect of what would happen if small things were different and changed, and how that would affect the outcome of this narrative. So, like, film opens with Lola getting a phone call from her boyfriend Manny. Manny works for this like gangster, mobster, whatever. Like he's supposed to be bringing him 100,000 Deutschmarks, but Manny leaves it on the train, like the train that he's riding, because Manny's an idiot and he loses this 100,000 Deutschmarks. So he calls Lola and he's like, I lost his money. I have 20 minutes to get it for him, or they're going to murder me. So I need to walk into this laundromat and steal the money. And Lola's like, whoa, put brakes, bro, real quick. Uh, let's try to figure out a different way to get you this money. I will meet you there in 20 minutes. And if I don't have the money, then we can rob the laundromat there. So it goes, Lola runs out of her apartment, and we get to watch 20 minutes in live time play out. What happens for these 20 minutes between when she gets off the phone with Manny and when she's supposed to potentially help him rob this laundromat? 20 minutes plays out, terrible stuff happens. We get to the end, terrible stuff happens, and then boom, we cut back to 20 minutes earlier, and Lola's running out of her apartment again. And then we get to watch those 20 minutes play out with small differences happening in life. Different characters do different things, and it causes a change in Lola's reactions and what she does and how it affects those 20 minutes playing out. We get to the end of those 20 minutes, still not a very good outcome. So what happens? Boom, we get reset. Lola's running out of the apartment again and again. Different things happen. Different things changes Lola's trajectory, and we get to a third ending. Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but it's three different endings of what could possibly have happened in those 20 minutes. Now, let me explain to you why this movie is so good. This movie is not the Lola is reliving the same day plot device. Lola's reliving the same day trying to get a better ending. Lola has no idea that she's reliving the same day. This isn't like a time travel, like time loop. Like, this isn't any of that. This movie is about what small little things in life can have huge ripples and change the outcomes of some things. Lola at no point ever uses like knowledge of, oh, I know this is going to happen. Like, I'm going to jump over this guy. No, the characters around Lola do different things that cause Lola's reactions to be different, to cause her to go this way instead of that way, to make her make this decision instead of this decision. Literally, it boils down to like a guy that's outside of her apartment trips her one time. Because he trips her, she's a minute behind, so some of the other things that play out don't play out at the same time. So Lola misses narrative parts of the story that we saw in one of the other versions. So we know, oh, she doesn't react this way because she doesn't see this happening. Like, as a viewer, you're seeing the same story told three different times, where again, Lola has no knowledge that she's repeating this. This is literally like the butterfly effect, the parallel universe. Like, different things happen at different times for different reasons, and we're getting to see that play out and how it gets Lola from place A to place B and what happens to her on that path. And it's so amazingly well done. Like, this is if you saw the 1998 Gwyneth Paltrow movie Sliding Doors, it's much more like that. Where again, that movie shows you things chronologically. What happens? Essentially, the plot of Sliding Doors is Gwyneth Paltrow is trying to get on the subway. In one timeline, she gets on. In another timeline, there's somebody in front of her that stops her from getting on. So she misses that subway, and because she is or isn't on that subway, her life plays out in two totally different paths. So that movie bounces back and forth between the two different paths at the same time to show you how her life changes. But this literally gives you a 20-minute snippet and shows you three different times what would happen if she missed certain events in the day. It's so amazingly constructed, put together really well, and it's a quick watch. It's like an hour and a half at most. I think it's like 120 to be honest. Very quick, and it's available on Amazon Prime. So literally everybody on the planet can watch this movie at zero cost. It's free. Go on Amazon Prime and watch it. It's so worth your time. As long as you can deal with subtitles. I mean, there's probably a dubbed version. I don't know. I watch stuff with subtitles. I like hearing, well, especially the German language, but even Japanese movies or stuff like that. Like, I'm a subtitle guy because I want to hear the actual performance. The one time I was animated Japanese, like the Hayao Miyazaki stuff, I can listen to that, like the dubbed versions, but I don't mind watching that with subtitles either because it's really good. I highly recommend it. The soundtrack is really super up tempo, like it's this poppy techno music while she's running around, kind of like very upbeat, fast-paced stuff. Very enjoyable. Not my typical type of music, but definitely works really well for this movie. So again, two great movies released this week. One that made mainstream for kids, one that went, art house for some adults, and then we have a fairly mediocre but not terrible movie in The General's Daughter. So great week, June 18th, 1999. Next week, super excited. It's one of my all-time favorite movies of 1999. It is the Adam Sandler flick Big Daddy, and I can't wait to talk about it.